Whenever I do my reviews, I tend to either review single player only games or games that allow for a co-op multiplayer, but not so much games that are designed specifically to be played only multiplayer in game modes such as Deathmatch, Conquest, etc. Titanfall 2 in that aspect is a lot like Battlefield. It does have a single player and it does have a multiplayer component, and the multiplayer component is the one that they're actually focusing on. However, that doesn't have to mean that the single player is bad, and I personally am mostly interested in a good story in a game, so I'm gonna be talking about the single player of Titanfall 2 here. Specifically, I'm gonna start with the story because I've mentioned it already, and the story for me is the most important factor in every game. A good story can alleviate bad gameplay. I've actually played games which I would describe as really bad, but the story is actually so good that I'm interested. And this game, unfortunately, is not one of them. The gameplay is actually excellent, but the story is rather weak. The main character sucks, his voice acting is mediocre, and ultimately it doesn't feel like I can sympathize with him. The one that I actually ended up liking is the mech that he has, or the Titan in this particular case. The game kills an important character right at the start, and that just feels like this character was never important to begin with, although it does try to actually tell you that this is an important character and you're supposed to feel sorry for him. This doesn't work, and it's a terrible practice. Something, for example, that we also saw in Mass Effect Andromeda. Killing a character who is designed to be important right at the start just makes him a nobody for the player. It takes time for me to like a character and to feel for him. I understand that he's just a device to further the plot, but it's a bad way of doing things. Give me a bit more time. Think of another reason to give me a Titan. The Titan itself feels kind of boring to play as. There are some Titan battles that are designed really well, and those are exciting, but most of the time the Titan just feels like a more clunky, slow, and not very effective war machine that you're using. Oftentimes you gain control of the Titan, but it just doesn't feel satisfying. It doesn't feel overpowered. You have several different abilities, one of them being Cloak, making you invisible. This ability is pretty much useless because sneaking in the game is all in all pretty bad. You don't even have an execution animation for it. If you melee while cloaked, you actually get your normal animation. So that's something that I don't understand. They obviously did not want you to go stealthily. I love stealth, and if a game gives me an option to be invisible, I believe that this game wants me to be stealthy at that time. It just doesn't feel like this does anything for it. It's not how it's meant to be played, and it just feels like a wasted resource. Weapons feel very similar. Most of the weapons shoot the same way, sound the same way, and ultimately don't seem to do different damage when compared to each other, which is not such a good thing altogether. The first few hours of the game are actually not that much fun. It feels like you got a bunch of fetch quests lined up one after another, and that just is boring to me. Good that there are at least some conversations along the way to pep things up. Now, while I've been talking about this game and I seem to not like most of it, there are a lot of things in the game that I really enjoyed. First of all, the campaign incorporates time travel. It's a gimmick that I absolutely adore in games because it offers some really interesting ways of playing every game. You have smart level design, which incorporates the great mobility, and that is fun to use, and when you actually start doing it properly, you're gonna feel like a badass. So that is something that I really love. There are lots of awesome action sequences, especially by the end where the game gets so action-packed. That felt absolutely awesome. I also like that there's a funny guy with a Schwarzenegger accent. It's just entertaining to me. I like when games incorporate some kind of humor. There's a properly done antagonist, an antagonist that I feel like is designed well, has a good character, and I actually felt like killing, so that's a good thing in the game. It is also perfectly optimized. While being gorgeous, it still ran at very solid frame rates throughout the whole time, no matter how crazy the action got. The visuals, as I've said, are absolutely gorgeous. The checkpoint system that is being used here is very good. They have intentionally placed checkpoints right where they would expect you to die, and it never felt like it was cheap or I had to replay too much if I did die, if I failed some kind of jump. So that's very well done. I absolutely appreciate that. The game actually gets better with each level and incorporates more and more ways of playing it. It's just good level design, and it's such good level design that I don't remember the last time I saw one like that. I absolutely love that. Another thing that I enjoyed was the fact that you get different conversation options. When you talk, you can actually choose what your character is gonna say, and while the character himself is not very likable and his voice acting, as I've mentioned, is quite mediocre, being able to choose what he's gonna say and get a certain response towards that is already a good start. And again, your Titan with whom you actually talk and have interesting and funny at times conversations is actually a great pal to have, and makes up for the bad voice acting of the protagonist. The Titan kits are also cool. They change your Titan very drastically, and some of them actually by the end of the game start feeling properly strong. The multiplayer is pretty good as well. I personally played very little of it, but there's so many games that I want to play, and for me the single player is what pulled me in here, and I think that you will enjoy playing both in any case. So am I recommending you this game? Absolutely am. It's not very expensive at the moment, and it's definitely a great buy. At this point I would like to thank you for watching my video, and I hope I'll see you on the next one. Have a great day.